Welcome, hockey and SPHL fans, to another video. As you see, I got guest Zach Starry, one of my favorite people to have on here and talk hockey with. This one's going to be a little different than my normal videos now because, dealing with SPHL hockey, yes, we'll touch a little bit on Havoc, but that's not really what this video is about. As you guys should know by now. Starry is a goalie. He's still active. Grew up playing the position, played it in Illinois, and now plays it where he lived in Alabama. So yeah, I wanted him on here to talk a little goalie with us. And if you guys didn't know, I too played the position in my youth, but obviously I'm not active by any stretch of the imagination. So it's always interesting to talk hockey with him, regardless. But definitely interesting to talk goalie uh, with our career and who we looked up to growing up. Kind of contrasting styles with size and the way we played the position. Um, I'll get into it with you, Zach. First, why don't you kind of tell them how long you've been playing hockey, where you're playing hockey, and what you're doing right now actively, and I'll just turn it over to you.
Uh, well, I started when I was 5. My dad went to a Riverman game and fell in love with. I never been to a game before, and fell in love with it. Signed me up the next day, and first year Little Stars, no one plays goalie. Second year, they put me on defense, and um, my third year, which would have been second year of Mites, Butch Cable's cousin Chris. Um, Knew I wanted to be a goalie, and they didn't have any in the tryouts. So they got me gear, suited me up, and ended up making the Double A team. And the rest was history. I played till I was 29 there in Pekin, played all the way through high school, went to college, and then I played the Sunday Night League and did a little traveling men's league and stuff like that. And we moved down here and just felt like it was time to hang them up. I'd done everything I needed to do, and um, last couple of years, I started playing in a charity tournament down here called the Longest Game, and I couldn't stop scratching that itch. And kids are old enough now to where I can go off for a couple hours and play hockey again. And so this summer, tried it out again, see if it would work with our schedule, and we're 5 games into the season now, so everything's going well. It's a little harder than I thought getting back into it. Um, Body's not as stiff as I thought it would be after 8 years of being off the ice, but man, my lungs, it's it's tough to get those lungs back into shape. That's the one thing that I never thought would be the hardest thing, but yeah, it's tough to try and keep from dying and over hyperventilating out there. You start getting shot and you're up down, back again, and yeah, it's that's the roughest part, but it's fun and it's something that like riding a bike. You don't forget how to move. You don't forget how to follow the puck. Just sometimes you're not as quick, or the mechanics aren't as sharp and as they used to be and stuff.
I think sometimes people forget how important cardio and keeping your body loose really is for a goalie. I mean, cardio is huge. I mean, to wear all that equipment to play the course of a full game competitive hockey, it's just like, some people say, well, you get that little break in between. It's just like, sometimes it don't feel like the break's long enough. At times, that cardio, it can really zap you like that. You could get dehydrated easily. If you're not staying loose, how easy it is to pull a muscle or tear a muscle when you're in there playing. So what was that? You said you had an 8-year layoff. So when you put the gear back on and got out on the ice, like, was it just like kind of a shock to the system where it was just like, holy crap, dude, like, I'm already freaking drained and this game's not over. Like, how was that moment for you?
Yeah, I was it felt like I had never stopped playing. Put the gear on, everything seemed the same. Didn't forget about how to tie the skates or lace up the pads and stuff like that. Um, the funny thing was, when I was a kid, we had a guy, great guy, Walt Ernest, would come and work with all of us goalies, and he had on those old floppy leather skates that they wore back in the day. They were goalie skates, but they were the old, from the Bobby Hall days of skates, and we used to tease him and make fun of him. And the game has changed a lot in the 8 years, 6 years before I started playing in that one game. And you lose touch when you're not buying gear and stuff. You lose, kind of touch on how everything goes. The players, the new goalie skates and all that stuff now, they no longer look like clown shoes. They don't have that hard outer shell that goes around them. And I'm still using those skates. Well, I bought a new pair, but it was weird watching people look at me strap those skates on, and I'm like, I'm having that moment where now I'm Walt Ernest. I'm using these old relics of the game and everything like that. These heavy ass clown shoes that they are. But nothing really changed. And I got out there on the first shift, and they come down, and you make a couple saves, and they head back down the ice, and you realize, oh shit, I'm out of breath already. And you look up the clock, and you realize only 2 minutes has gone by, and yeah, it's rough. You're really thankful that they do a running clock in our league and everything like that. Now I knew going into this season it was going to be, okay, I'm gonna have to get my lungs ready, and I walk around a lot at work and stuff like that, so body stays loose. I wasn't too worried about that. First game felt good. Second game felt good. And then it's like all of a sudden my lungs are like, man, we're done doing this. So, but now last week I did feel a lot better. Didn't really, have a hard time catching my breath and stuff like that. But it's a whole different game when you take that time off to try and catch your breath and everything like that, because it's tough. It's different than being a skater because you're taking 2 minutes off, heading back on the ice, taking 2 minutes off. A goalie, you could take 30 seconds and they're back in the zone, and they can be in the zone for 2 minutes at a time. And it's not as easy as a skater is. Skater, you can kind of loaf around, especially if you're on defense. You can just kind of hang back and just wait and catch your breath that way and change. And goalie, you got to be ready to go at a moment's notice. And there's no better workout than going from post to post to post to post, up, down. That'll wear your breath out, and you didn't even move but 2 feet. So
Right.
a lot of people don't realize that the goalie has to be, like you said, the highest cardio out there, because it's a lot to go up, down, let alone moving side to side. And, we don't get the fresh air that the players get. We got to wear the full cage, and then, we're wrapped in, heavy gear. It's not really that heavy, but it's smothering gear. So you can't just cool yourself off that easily.
Which that's kind of what I want to ask you, because you could speak to this better than me because you're still active. So, what is the comparison between the equipment you wear when you grew up playing in hockey here in Illinois compared to gear you see nowadays that goalies wear? They say it's a little more sleeker and stuff. It's a little better. Is it? But to me, it seems like it's a bit more bulkier. So, like, can you kind of speak on the difference between gear when you grew up playing to gear you wear now? Is there much of one?
Yeah, for the most part, it's better. Like I said, I bought the new skates. Last week was the first week I tried them on. They're very different because the boot isn't so soft. It's not as flexible because it needs to be the harder shell as well. So it's very stiff, but they're very light. And used to when you sharpen the old skates, they'd be really stiff and rough for a while till you broke them in. These new ones, they were game ready. As soon as they got sharpened, I went out there and expected to be kind of stiff and stick to the ice. It was like they had been broken for a year. They were so smooth. Um, the chest protector, I bought a new chest protector this year. Got a good deal on a Bauer Hyperlight 2. That thing is so light. I've never had a chest protector that light before. It still protects you. I don't feel shots. They'll hit you dead center. I don't feel them. It absorbs it so that they don't bounce off you. but it feels like you're not wearing anything at all. And the movement on it is so easy. You don't feel constricted. You don't feel like there's nothing there in the sense of like, oh man, if I take a shot here, it's going to hurt. Um, and that's pretty much the only gear. I bought a brand new Bauer helmet. I think it was a 105 or something like that, 905 or something. But now that's pretty nice. They're very tight. They fit snug. There's no wobbling around your head like the old ones used to do. You don't have to worry about tightening the chin strap up and the back plate to keep it. I mean, the sides stay on you pretty tight. Um, but as far as all the other gear, I did try out a pair of those True Pads last weekend, and that's a whole different feel. You get used to the pad being snug on you, and your leg makes the movement. And these are you got to wear them super loose. They're supposed to just flop down, and you're so used to having to force yourself to push side to side with the old leather pads, and these new ones just dropping, I would slide, and I'm like, oh crap, I got to watch how fast I go down because you just go down and just you slide right on through. So the equipment definitely I can tell is a lot better, and I wasn't even I didn't even use old gear, but it has changed a lot. It has changed a lot. The people up there running it, getting feedback from actual goaltenders and how to make these pads and stuff like that. It is way different than when I was a kid. When I was a kid, they were just pillows you strapped on your legs, and you had to form them the way you wanted to, and you had to, go down a certain way to make them fold up, and they still wouldn't fold up the right way. It's definitely come a long way, and these goalies these days, they don't know how easy they have it to just drop, and the pads are right there for you.
Right. Because I heard these newer pads, like they protect your five hole a little easier. Like it's easier to close that gap. Maybe you can close it quicker and get that tighter to the ice. I don't know because, like I said, I haven't worn them. I've often told people, look, if I got the green light from everybody, like my family, and got the pads today, it would still probably be a year before I could play competitive hockey because I'm competitive. I don't like to suck. And I don't want to go in there and give up 8 goals and not get to feel my padding, not get my cardio up. So just to get into playing shape and to get used to the new gear, shit, it would probably take me a year before I would even play competitively. Um, it had different style back then. I was primarily a stand-up goalie. Doesn't mean I didn't drop to the butterfly, but I was primary stand up. I relied a lot on my angles, depth, and stick movements and stick work and shit. But like, so what style would you say that you're primarily a butterfly? You've always been butterfly, haven't you, for the most part, since you started playing?
I'd say that's the primary move. Yeah, I go down the butterfly, but I was more of a Hasek style where you just did whatever you had to do to stop the puck. There's the thing you don't see anymore is everybody is so stationary. They're so in perfect form to where they drop, they slide, they drop, they slide. They're in, they stay uniform, and so when a 2-on-1 comes, you rarely see a goaltender diving anymore. They go across, and that shot's not there, and they just turn over their shoulder and they watch the guy whack it in. I mean, that save that Bobrovsky made a year ago on the Lightning where he reached around behind his back. You just don't see saves like that anymore. Well, when we grew up, that's how goalies did. I mean, you did whatever you could do to stop the puck, and you played the percentage shots. The guy is going to be fancy. He's going top glove. Um, this shot normally is going to go midway through the net when they've got an open net. They're not just going to slide it in. So you would just dive across midair and whack it out of the air, and you never gave up on a play ever. Um, so I played a lot of that. I was never really good with my rebound control. So I adapted, and instead of trying to absorb the puck, I would just kick it back out at them. They weren't ready for the shot coming back at them. Um, the poke check is a skill I think is kind of lost. They don't do that stuff anymore. Everybody waits for the shot to come at them. We would attack the shooter.
Mm-hmm.
I still do that a lot. Um, someone said I play very old, and what they mean is '90s style where goalies came out and attacked. They didn't sit back and wait for the shot and just play the angles. They saw the pass coming from the net, and you'd put your stick out to knock it away just so the guy doesn't even have a chance to shoot it on you.
Exactly.
So yeah, but mainly, first move was butterfly. You drop to your knees and try to take away the bottom of the net and stuff like that. And um, yeah, I mean, having long legs, it kind of helps. You can kind of cover a lot more ground on the bottom of the net and stuff like that. And but being tall, you could see over the defender, so they couldn't really screen you too bad. It would happen a lot, but not like it was a common thing.
Yeah, which I kind of like that you said that because it does kind of speak to the style I played. Now, you are a bit bigger than me, to say the least. Probably can cover more ground and see over screens. With me, just the way I was always taught because of my size, like even if I drop down, I would pop up. Like the only reason I'm dropping down is to stop the shot. But as soon as that puck goes off me, I'm back up on my feet. Like I didn't really do a lot of sliding on the ground. And like what you said, I was drilled on attacking the puck, attacking the shooter before he has a chance to set up and put something on me. Like what you said, you don't see the poke check utilized as much anymore. And that's something I relied on heavy, whether they were cutting in front of me or whatever the case may be. Is a lot of the times I would drop down, stack the pads, and go for that poke check. So even if I missed, I somewhat had a backup, and like what you said, at that point, it's anything possible to keep the puck. Like I'm not always worried about the way it looks technically, as long as I can get a part of my body on that puck. That's all I'm looking for. So I can definitely appreciate what you said about being aggressive in the poke checking and still doing it. Uh, you know, for me, like I said, it was a little easier to get screened off. I'm a little smaller, so I can't just like stay in the butterfly and look around. Like if anything, if I'm in the butterfly, instead of trying to look over top, I'm looking in between legs and around legs and trying to figure it out. But I'm also sitting on top of my crease and the players that are too close to me, yeah, I was a little aggressive. I might give them a blocker or a stick to the back, just to let them know, hey, you're a little close to my crease. Don't appreciate that, and to move them so I can see. Um, so you still play that aggressive style yourself? You maybe if somebody's getting a little too close to the crease or anything like
No,
that. Or,
no, I used to be, but this year, I mean, I enjoy the game now. I still get frustrated myself because I know I should make certain saves. I've let in some easy ones, um, but I don't poke at people no more. I'm not trying to be a jerk on the ice. I'm not trying to fight for ground anymore. I'm in that stage where I'm just enjoying playing. Not playing just doesn't sound appetizing to me, So enjoying where I'm at, the team I'm on, they're great people. There's no blaming going on. There's no looking over their shoulder, not trusting you. They always got good positive things to say. It's a great team to be on. I mean, skill wise, through pedigree, it's not the league to be in. It's like the lowest level, I think they said. But my lungs, the way they are, I'm happy to be there. I couldn't imagine a faster pace right now. Um, but I'm also very loyal, so I don't plan on leaving until the team disbands. I said 5 games in, and they welcomed me with open arms. Been super kind. Um, I got hurt 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Um, just stretched too far and really, really messed up my groin muscle. Um, they were all checking in on me. Just never even had that growing up. Players didn't care to that level. So um, definitely not trying to play that way. But I did. I would get in their face, um, and we had a charity game there in Pekin, the best of Pekins versus the best of Peoria, and Peoria had a lot of the ex Rivermen and stuff, and one of them, I can't remember what his name was now. He was an enforcer for the Rivermen back in the ECHL days. And he, being the Sean Avery type, just getting in your face and, pushing on you and all that stuff. And, I just dropped it and was, hey, let's go. Like, I don't care. It's a charity game. You probably whoop me, but I'm not going to sit here and take this no more.
Yeah.
I'm going to splash at you. We're going to, tussle if need be. I never waited for my defense to clean up my mess. I would just go after them myself. Um, I was kind of like a Ron Hextall type. That's the one thing I really admired about him, was that he didn't back down. You weren't going to push him around. He wasn't going to just take your bull crap. He was going to, fight back and let you know he was there.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I tried not to be the first to do something, right? I didn't want to be the aggressor in that, but it's like I always felt the need like I had to fight for my space because when you are a smaller goalie, I mean, trust me, I've heard just about every chirp you can in hockey about my size. I've had players, try to take shots at me to throw me off my game. And, when I was younger, yes, of course, I would let my emotions get the better of me from time to time, kind of like you can only take so much before you finally just kind of snap and you might throw a shot at them and be ready to go, type of thing. And my sibling, my brother, who's now my sister, we both played hockey. We both were goalies. She was a little bit more aggressive than say me at one point. Like she was the most penalized goalie probably in the league. She's a bit bigger than me too. It's not something to try to be, but with me, like I said, I had a lot of people that always tried to get in my kitchen. So that there's a lot of things they didn't expect to get from me. So I had to, I had to play my game, and I was just an aggressive goalie. That's how I was. That's how I kind of felt the need to be, and kind of like what you said, that Ron Hextall, Billy Smith type, where you play with that aggression a little bit. Goalies I kind of look to, which you kind of led me into that. Who was some of the goalies that when you started playing as a kid up until now that once you knew like, okay, I'm a goalie now, there's no going back, I'm a goalie. Who was some of those goalies that you admired, kind of looked to, that inspired you and appreciate the way they played the game at any level, any level?
Um, well, I mean, Ron Hextall was always the top dog, but that, we were the Pekin Flyers. We had the same logo, same color, same jerseys. I wore number 24 back in youth hockey. He wore 27. So, I mean, they were so close together, oddball numbers. I always admired how tough he was. I thought that's how you should play the game. Just because you're a goalie doesn't mean that you need to be weak. You don't need to be, we see that with like the quarterback position. They all just seem so fragile, and they lay it on and play hurt and all that stuff. And it was like, I'm the goalie. Like, I'm going to show you how tough I am, and I'm going to surprise you and throw you off your game. Um, but Cujo was one of my favorites. He was another one that would attack the players. He wouldn't really fight, but he wasn't gonna bend over and take it. You got close to him, you got hit. He was very passionate about his play, and he was kind of a what they called a hybrid back then. He wasn't straight to the butterfly. It was a little stand up, little butterfly, a little sporadic save here and there. I definitely, once I started watching Hasek play, realize that you don't gotta listen to your coach and play this way, play that way. Just do what you got to do to stop the puck in the game, and if you stop it, ain't nobody gonna chew you out for it. But definitely those three guys. Two of them I admired. One I kind of modeled my game after. As far as favorites of the game, there were so many. I mean, I've got my new helmet. I showed pictures of it out there, and I put all my favorite goalies, one from each team on there, growing up and stuff. You had the Cat up there in Toronto for years. Even guys like Tommy Salo. I mean, he gets a bad rap for that one playoff or the Olympic game, but he was a solid goaltender. People forget how good he was. Everyone just kind of remembers the '90s for the Waugh, the Hassicks, Belfours, and Brodeurs, but there were so many uh, other guys out there that were good. I mean, I'm not a Blues fan, but Brent Johnson was. I mean, he's the reason why you have the trapezoid, because he could play that puck better than anybody else out there. 3 shutouts in a row in a one playoff game, tied a record. Patrick Lalime, when he was in his prime, same way. I mean, the '90s really was the coming of age for goaltending, and those guys really paved the way for what these guys, in the 2000s, and especially the late 2000s have gotten to. Kiprusoff, those guys, getting out and modeling pads to, hey, this is what we want. This is what we want to see. This will help our game out so much better. There's not, you know, the history tells more than the Richters and the Van Beesbrooks and stuff like that. I mean, you had a guy named Jim Carey who won a Vezina in the '90s. There were so many good guys out there that it's hard really to build a Rushmore and not feel like you left somebody good off that list.
Yeah. I mean, do you got your helmet nearby?
No, it's down the garage.
I was gonna say you should show that helmet because I've seen that helmet, and that's a pretty awesome helmet too. By the way, um, yeah, I when you showed me that, I was like, I'm jealous because that
Oh,
was a pretty cool helmet that you showed me.
I got pictures of it here if that'll work.
Hey, that's better than nothing at all. Yeah, I just as people should see it because, like I said, I love the helmet. I love the concept of it and the way it was laid out. It just yeah, it was a great helmet. I mean, that's
It was
something.
a passion project I'd been wanting to do for years, but my dad passed away. I decided to do a dedication helmet for him instead. Um, but now that I started playing again,
Oh yeah,
like he's
the different.
so that's
It might be
one
hard
side.
to read the names, but you can definitely make out the goalies there, and that's just. I think that's a great tribute. Yeah, that's pretty cool, man. That is always awesome to see. I think that's an outstanding tribute to some of these goalies that we grew up watching. Like I said, there's so many of them, man. There really is. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was just something that I wanted to do and wanted to show my thankfulness to the game for all those guys that kind of helped pave the way for me. Guys I enjoyed watching and stuff like that. If maybe one of them saw it, they'd be, like, cool, I did, made an impact, a lasting impact, and then the back plate I did for the kids. So incorporated after my son um, and then that. And of course, I hand painted all of that on the helmet. I didn't send that out to get airbrushed. I mean, it may not look the best on there because it is hand painted with model paint, coats and coats of clear coat, but I mean, it still looks pretty sharp. But
I think that's
it
what's
was just one of
special
the,
though is that
just one
you
of
did it yourself. I mean, like I said, that's part of the reason it's so awesome. Not only the concept, but the fact that you did it yourself and didn't have it sent off. I think that's what makes it so special. So I mean, that looks awesome. I mean, a lot of the work you do is awesome when it comes to that, from the figures to the painting of the helmet. Like I said, it's special, man. I mean, that's definitely something to be proud of for sure.
and then the hidden details in there. Like if you look, it looks like the night helmet that kind of a mixture of between Flurry's Vegas night helmet and Quick's King helmet. So that was the kind of basis to look like a white knight helmet was being put on. Um, and then all the wasn't it wasn't planned, but it just happened to look that way after I was done with it. If you go back and look at the photos, you just kind of glance at them, the names, the ribbons, they look like the stitches, like from Gary Cheever's helmet. And so I was like, man, that really kind of when you know goaltending helmets and you look back and you just kind of glance on that, you think they're stitches. So that kind of worked out pretty cool. But yeah, it worked out a lot better than I thought it would when I was dreaming it up and drawing it up. I was like, man, I don't know if this will work out. You know, the shading, trying to get the goaltenders shaded in because I wanted them to kind of look like a silhouette. But yeah, it all worked out, and I wish I could have drawn pictures of every one of the goaltenders and just lightened them up there. But I think the ribbons look a lot better. It's kind of open but cluttered, and it looks good.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. Because, like I said, that would be tough. It's awesome, but it would be tough because, like I said, there's so many goalies I would pay tribute to. Just like I said, again, a goalie that you don't hear much about that I looked up to because to me it showed me that size doesn't matter. It's possible to not only play hockey but be competitive and even make it up to the NHL level was Darren Pang. I mean, we all, he played for the Hawks. We all know he was probably one of the smallest goalies to play the position and make it up there. And I always admired him for that. He inspired me a lot to keep going in spite of my size. But yeah, me growing up, like I said, kind of like you, my dad took me to a Riverman game, first game. My dad is now passed away as well. He's what got me into hockey. It was, kind of my first love. Uh, I grew up with goalies like Pat Jablonski and Guy Bear, which both did a little time in the NHL. Well, Guy Bear did more than a little time, but Pat played a little bit up, and then you move on to goalies like Jeff Sargent and Paris Duffus, and I played in a camp when those guys were there, primarily Duffus, and I learned a few things from them, and so watching goal, and of course, you're always going to say, especially if as a goalie, Patty Waugh and Marty Brodeur, and those are the obvious ones. Ed Belfour, Q Joe, again played for the Rivermen and went up to the Blues, and I loved Q Joe. That again, one of my probably tops was Q Joe for me. Um, but like I said, I could sit here and name several different goalies that inspired me and made me want to keep playing the position. I didn't make it out of high school, especially with ice hockey. Played a little street and floor hockey here and there, but basically high school is where it ended for me. And goalie was the only position. If they tried to get me to play other positions, you're good, but again, if you got a skilled goalie that's like 5'6", and you got a skilled goalie that's 6'1", the goalie 6'1" is probably going to get the look over the 5'6" goalie, and that's just the way it is. It is. So they always wanted to try to get me to change positions, but I would always be like, no, goalie's my position. If I'm going to do anything in hockey, it's going to be at goalie. That's where my passion, that's where my love is. And like I said, I fell in love with that position from moment one. Like I always wanted to be goalie from the start. I mean, as a kid, growing up, it's almost like they're superheroes, right? Like you look at them in their helmet, their gear, everything, and you're just like in awe. Oh, those guys are awesome. Just look at the armor they're wearing, the sticks, the gloves, the helmets. Like that's the hero. That's my focus was always on that from a kid. So I was like, that's me. I want to be that guy with the game on the line to stop the puck, wearing all that gear. Like it was just awe-inspiring for me. So, like I said, it's unfortunate that, I don't play anymore. I still get that itch. I still want to play. My mind tells me I could play right now, but my body would be like, no, you can't. So, not yet anyway. But, that's awesome that you're still going, you're still playing. I mean, I wish I could say the same for me, but unfortunately, it's just not that easy for me. Otherwise, I would be out there. I guarantee you I would be. But yeah, I had a lot of inspiration, like I said, and I grew up the old style way. Just right as stand up was kind of fading out. That's where I started my hot. There's still goalies that use that, but it was kind of starting to fade in favor of butterfly. Which again, in modern day hockey, you have to have a butterfly. You got to have a good butterfly. It's a must, and otherwise you're not going to get far. But I think oftentimes stand up still don't get enough credit, and it's not utilized enough because there's been times I've done it several times, even in modern games from every level. It's like if he didn't drop down to the butterfly, that would have been a save. Or if he would have got up from the butterfly, that would have been a save. So I do think people heavily rely too much on the butterfly at times. But you still have to have a good butterfly period. It's just important. But
Oh yeah, these kids have no idea what it's like. When we were kids, we'd go down and we'd stay down and just kind of shuffle across our pads, and we get yelled at by the coach and have to go do up downs and stuff like that for not getting up. You always hear all the time. Anybody was a goalie that was in the 80s, 90s, all that, you'd hear the coach, get up, get up.
yeah,
Nowadays, these goalies drop and they never get back up. They get, the whole style's been developed to push across here, push across there. And so, I heard one guy say that these goalies these days are the most athletic that goalies have ever been. And I had to call bullshit on that. I mean, the pads that these guys wore back in the day were waterlogged. They were 12 inches wide, which that 1 inch, it makes a big difference, ladies. Um, it made it heavier. Your pads were so thick, and it took everything in you to get them to roll up into the butterfly. You go back and look at photos of goaltenders in the 90s, their pads were not a smooth butterfly. They would curve in on the goalie, they'd curve down. You look at guys like Grant Fuhr and everything like that, and it just they were out of shape looking guys, and they were out there drinking beer before the game, in between periods, and coming out and throwing shutouts on the board. People say, well, the skill position had to get better because the players had to get better, and that's true. But these guys were going up with Wayne Gretzky's, Mario Lemieux's, and they were getting shutouts and stuff like that. And they weren't out there doing all the cardio. They weren't out there doing all that physical stuff that we do now for goaltenders and all that stuff. So, like I said, I have to say bullshit. I think the goaltenders back then were just way more athletic. The saves they had to make, the gear they had to wear, and they were there, and they were Iron Men. They didn't get to sit out games. You look at now. I don't think you could name 5 goalies that make it through a full season without some sort of an injury. Growing up, those goaltenders were in there every game. And if they missed a game, it was like, holy crap, it must be a serious injury. So, um, times have changed and everything. I understand that, but I don't know. Give me those guys any day of the week.
yeah, absolutely, I agree. Like I said, and I've gotten crap from it. I don't know how many times about how aggressive. Like I've heard people be like, "Oh, stay in the net. A goalie should never leave the crease or leave the net," and it's like bullshit. They got a stick for a reason. What do you mean never leave the net or the crease? They absolutely can and should at times. And I've gotten into a lot of arguments with people, and they're just like, well, that's just not the way you do it anymore. And it's like, why not? I mean, if it would work just as well now as if it then that you're attacking the puck still. You're attacking the same puck that you did back then. It's all about timing and confidence. I mean, if you get the timing down and have the confidence, you can still make those plays. It's just like to make up for my weaker butterfly is just like it was my stick work. A lot of stick work used to make those saves to take away, the ice, to take away that low shot and using the poke check and playing aggressively and attacking the shooter. That's what made up for my maybe not having the strongest butterfly in my size. And like I said, I don't like what you said. I don't see it enough. I seen it with a few goalies where it's literally before the guy even lines up to shoot the puck, like they're already in the butterfly. Or if they are behind the net, they're dropped in the butterfly going post to post. And it's just like you're totally exposing top shelf. And not saying you can't still stop it up there, but if you're up and confident, like you're taking away both. With good positioning and everything, you're still taking away top shelf in the bottom part of the ice. And it's just that's why with some of those goalies, when I see them stand up with the player behind the net, I'm like, see, this guy fucking, excuse my language, gets it. you know. Like I just see and it kind of drives me nuts. It does. With the understanding that I know that things have changed, different habits are developed, goalies are coached different, like what you said, especially for my size. I mean, even if I already knew and was getting back up, the second I hit the ice I would hear from my dad or the coach, get up. Like the second I hit the ice, get back up, pop back up, and because like I said, when I wasn't, soaking it in, when I would always try to, obviously direct my rebounds to the boards. Didn't always work that way, but that's what you tried to do. So it's just like even if I'm not soaking it in, I always got a strategy in my mind. It's like the focus that a goalie has to have and the confidence is incredible, and people just don't understand until you're out there. It's just like, well, what if you're not getting a lot of work? Well, that's when you got to be more focused than ever and be ready. It's just like, what do you mean? You always got to be focused. It doesn't matter how much work you're getting. I mean, the second you aren't, I mean, you're exposing yourself. You're making yourself vulnerable. I mean, it's mental part of the game. Like you're always nervous, especially when you first get out there. You wait to get that first shot. Because it's a nightmare letting in the first shot. That's just a goalie's nightmare. Um, but yeah, after you get that first save and the puck's cleared, you kind of lean back like, all right, now I'm ready. Let's go. Type of thing. Um, so to kind of segue from that last little part about this goalie, a lot of people talk about goalie rituals, warm ups, what they do. I didn't do a bunch of stretching, but one thing that I always like to do, especially before games, and I do it, to track the water droplets in case people didn't know, is shooting the water bottle, with the water in the air to track the water. And, behind the net, like I said, when they would score, I don't know why, but it's like I would always, at the end of plays, like turn towards the back of the net and kind of flip my helmet up and spray my face and set my stick and my gloves on the top of the net and then kind of put them back on like during breaks of the game. Usually, if I made a save and stop it, I would have to go on a skate, do a lap, and come back. I mean, these were all just like habits and musts of mine. I know you have some. What are some like little habits and rituals you do as a goalie?
Um, I never did the skating. I guess I never saw the sense in doing the lap thing. Um, I know goalies say it helps you clear their head. I can clear my head while I'm sitting there in the crease. I'd rather sit there and think about the goal and picture it right there and be ready to go for the next puck drop. Um, the things I do, I mean, I had a lot of corks growing up, stuff like that. But things I still hold on to is I always feel like I have to get in the crease and tap each post twice, hit the crossbar, come out. I tap my glove, I smack the sides of my pads, and then I get set all before the ref, checks on you, raises his hand. And then when he does, I raise my stick hand, not my glove hand. And that's just something I've held on forever. But I always feel that when I don't get that done in time, it's going to be a bad period. And it usually is. And I still can't figure out, is it because I don't do it or is it because it's in my head? The only other weird thing I've ever had was when our team scores, I got to get a drink of water. I don't care if I just had one, I got to get a drink of water. But when they score on me, I won't get a drink of water. I don't feel like I deserve it. I feel like that's my punishment for letting one in. I just probably the wrong things to do because you probably need to stay hydrated. But it's one of those things where I just punish myself for letting that goal go in and not getting a drink and stuff like that. I can get a drink on the next stoppage of play or something like that. But um, I never did the face wash um, with the water bottle. I never liked taking my gloves off because they were a pain in the ass to get back on and get fit right. I only did it on special occasions. It would only be one. I'd maybe slide my stick and glove between one arm, pinch them, and get my stuff. Um, yeah, I never really did anything crazy like that. I would pile the snow up. I would get the crease all dug out and stuff like that. And then I would take the snow and I would pile it around the outside of the net and pack it real tight so it would stop them from doing wraparounds. So as they come around, it would hit like a ramp and ramp up over it so they couldn't quite do a tight tuck. Um, I would do that. Um, but yeah, outside of that, I mean, nothing was a needful thing. Now, when I felt like we were getting pressured in our zone, um, and I felt like we needed a whistle, I'd pull the rota bush and I'd knock that post off. Um, just go slide across too hard. Right, it was all accident. I never meant to do it. It was just all that momentum going from one side to the other. But that's why I laugh. People give them such a hard time. It's like it's a good thing to do. Make it look like an accident. Draw that whistle. Get a fresh line change, and everyone gets a break. Little strategies like that in the game. Um, Guy stand in front of you. You hit him in the back of the skates, make him wobble a little bit. He can't deflect if he can't find his legs. You didn't have to trip the guy. You didn't have to hack him down. You just throw him off his game a little bit, and that was it. That was all you had to do. So
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, I don't know why, but even especially when I would had a goal scored on me, it's just like I don't know if that helped me cool off and refocus. But like I said, I always had to spray my face with water. Like I said, I'd always put my blocker and my stick up on my net and do it. It's kind of after if the puck was still in the net, of course, after flicking the puck out. But yeah, I always felt like and I guess like I said, like what you said, because I always usually blame myself for goals anyway. It's any puck that goes by is one I should have saved. So kind of to cool myself off and reset myself. I mean, I can't remember a time that I was scored on and didn't spray my face with water. But yeah, and that and for preparation, like I always did the glove punch, like with my blocker and glove before they would come. Like when they're coming down the ice, when they're doing a face off, it's always glove punch, and then I would also hit my pads and be ready. Like I said, and the only time I would go for a skate is if I soaked up and held, made the save, and after I gave the ref the puck, then I'd do like a quick little lap. But like I said, a lot of the goalie stretching you see now, like I said, I wasn't a butterfly goalie, so I wasn't down there on the ice like doing pirouettes and little circles. I just wasn't. I mean, did a little stretching, but not a lot, and like a lot of mine was visual, uh, visual warm ups. So that's what I've tended to focus on more. But yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much standard. Like I said, especially for a goalie of my time. Um, it might be a little weird or quirky, but it to others, but to me it makes sense. And I'm sure just like what you do to you, it makes perfect sense. Do everything you do, and then when you're sitting there explaining it to people, and then they're kind of giving you that look, like, "What the hell are you talking about?" It's just like, look, it makes sense. That's all you need to know is it makes sense. So but I know some goalies like to be left alone during the game. I really wasn't that. I could talk to somebody to whatever, as long as you're not like criticizing me. Now, if you came up to me and said you should have had that, I don't care if you're on my team, the captain, or whatever. I'm going to want to hit you in the face 100%. And usually I've had that happen a few times, and I just tell them, well, go do your job, and I'll worry about mine. Trying to be the nice teammate, not get it too much. But I always hated that. It's just let me. If you want to tap my pads and say it's okay or something, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. I don't care about that. But just don't try to give me like advice during it or criticize by like just saying something dumb like you could have had it, because it's going to either anger me or I'm not even listening to you. One of the two. So kind of how are you with that? Did you have to be left alone or anything? That didn't matter to you?
Nah, not I like to be. I like to get in my zone before the game. I'd bury my face in my chest protector. Get it all dug down in there, and I would just kind of visualize shots coming at me.
Yeah.
Uh, I never got on the ice and acted stupid. The guys now they do this, do that. I don't think that. I think that looks stupid. I think you're a retard for doing something like that.
Yeah.
Um, but visualizing the shot and guys kind of moving along, just kind of back and forth like you see that I can see because they're focused and they're actually feeling the shot come at them. But yeah, just the idiosyncrasies of them having to feel like they're flipping their gloves up. That's for the drama of the new age stuff. But yeah, I would put my headphones on, listen to music, get me all pumped up. But during the game, I didn't care. I'd rather them come back and talk to me because when they started, you're having a good game and they leave you alone, you feel like, guys, what's going on? Like I'm still why are you shunning me now? And then that gets into your head. So,
Yeah.
it never bothered me. They come down, hey man, you're doing good today, or keep up the good work, or just come down and chit chat. It didn't bother me. It never does. It kind of keeps me focused on the game because now I don't feel like everybody's avoiding you. So
Yeah, I always like to be active and verbal because like you said, it kind of helps you feel more focused, like you're more a part of the game, right? Like you're more connected that way. So like I said, I always like to be verbal, and I didn't care. Like what you said, the only time where it's not even necessarily don't mess with me, but I was just more focused. Like what you said, is like I said, I did a lot of visualization, like you said. You just kind of get into it, and you think about scenarios and you visualize yourself making a save. Like I do a lot. It might sound dumb, but telling yourself, like, hey, you can make that save. You can make this save. If this happens, you do that. And like I said, I did a lot of visual training, eye movements and head movements and stuff. But like what you said, I didn't like do a bunch of the motions that are done now. It's so yeah, that's I guess we kind of have that in common too, because I didn't care. Like I said, even if you scored, as long as you're not criticizing me, if I gave up a goal, it's cool if come down and tap my pads or talk to me, and you know that's not a big deal. But anyways, all right. Well, before we go ahead and wrap up, there's just one quick thing I want to talk about. Get through this quickly, and then we'll, like I said, wrap up the video. Um, I did parts 1 through 3, my expectation video. I put Havoc at number 1 on my expectation. And don't worry, this ain't going to spoil it for anybody because this video is coming out after that video. So I'm not spoiling nothing. But I put Havoc at number 1. Like I said, I think their fan base is outstanding. The way the fans pack that arena, the season tickets sold, the way they support their team. You can't criticize that. I mean, you really can't. It's just you play well in an environment like that. You do. I really feel like it affects the boys on the ice more so than people realize when you got crowds like that, and even the way they traveled. Havoc fans traveled well this season. They got their fan bus that they bring groups of fans to games, and definitely make their presence known. So that's awesome. But it's not just the fans, obviously. It's the way the organization's run from top to bottom, from ownership, coaching staff, um, just the staff in general, to the players on the ice. It's a trickle down effect. It's a culture. Havoc have a great culture there. A lot of talent comes through. Now, I don't know for sure who's coming or going. The only one that I even somewhat have a feeling ain't coming back is Mike Robinson. Um, like I said, I'm not sure if he's coming back or not, but other than that, I really don't know. But I know a couple of players like Jack Yanich and Buster Larson, Austin Alger, Charlie Risk. There's a couple of those guys that I've seen that are just people you build around. Good talent that you build around that produce, that know how to do their job. I do have questions like Robbie Fisher, if he comes back or not. Cole Regianato, I've heard rumblings that he may not return. But even if there are a few guys that don't return, just I if I'm a Havoc fan, I trust again who Havoc bring in. So I got them at number one. So what are your thoughts of my placement and expectations of them? And are you along the same lines as I am when it comes to that expectation?
Well, I'm definitely not going to argue with the fact you put us at number one. However, given the playoff prediction, I kind of feel like I need to just go ahead and say that they're going to be in last place. They're going to be terrible this year. We're never going to win a game. No, I think they have a very good core. We saw how quickly they rebuilt, I guess you could kind of say, after the big retirement in 23 with all the players, goalies, coach, all that stuff. And they were in the finals the next year. Last year, they were second place, held first place pretty much all year. Um, I think the guys they have kept are the core guys that did a lot of damage last year. They brought back, they ended up tagging Brian Wilson, not Robo. I think he's the goalie that's going to make the big difference this year. I've been a fan of his since he came here a couple years ago. He's done fantastic. He's proven he can be an ECHL winner. Super nice guy too. Never big times anybody that I've ever seen. The players, Elkstam got tagged. One of the guys who really we saw grow last year. He was kind of the extra man. He was the healthy scratch unless somebody needed, a day off through injury or a call up. And he ended up finding himself in the regular roster, and that's Ryder. He really shined on defense, I thought. I was glad to see that they recognized that and kept him. I think he is the kind of the silent participant. No one really pays attention to him. Like you mentioned, Charlie Risk. People mentioned Dom. They mentioned Palmer. Even McCabe. They'll talk about Caber, but Ryder just kind of gets forgotten about, and he seems to do everything right out there. He's not a shooter. He's a supply guy. But he's smart with his passes. He knows where to set it up. He knows where to be. He's kind of really becoming one of my favorites on the team as the year went on. So I'm glad to see him get, a call back and everything like that. It'd be interesting to see who comes back because, like you said, Reggie's not on there. If you notice, Dom wasn't on there. Palmer wasn't on there. Fisher wasn't on there. Robo wasn't on there. I feel like Robo's done, and I feel like Fisher's done. Palmer, I don't know. I don't know about Reggie. These guys are older. It's one of those things where don't tag us because we're coming back. We're where else are we going to go? I do feel like Dom will be back because Gio got tagged, and we had an event a few weeks ago. Our booster club put on a Eat at Slim Chickens thing, and Dom showed up in the jersey with the Captain C on. He's married. He lives in the area. I don't think he's hanging him up yet. I could be wrong. We got a lot of time still to go. But I don't think he's going anywhere else. He's either going to retire or he's coming back. now to speak on the other thing with the owners, we got the Keith and Becky. Freak Daddy is, got a big hand in the ownership and stuff like that. One thing that I'm not even sure how many Havoc fans, a lot of the new fans aren't going to know, but we had that 2020 season that got ended shortly and then started late in the 2020-2021 season and only came back with 5 teams that year. After that year, the Havoc, I know they're the only team that has grown and gotten better as an organization. After that season, we started packing the house. We've set an attendance record every year since then. We have got the coolest things. Now we've got the on ice pregame show. We got the lights up top, not just the ones that shine down on projectors. The fan environment has gotten better. The booster club has grown. They're doing school events now where they're inviting, all these different schools in to watch a scrimmage and teach them the game and stuff like that. What Becky and Keith have done, post COVID shortened season full of bull crap is actually turn our franchise into a winner in the money book as well. They keep it still very low maintenance as far as the fans. They don't harp on you. They don't have restrictions and stuff like that. They're very approachable and very nice people. Even Freak Daddy, you can come out and talk to him, and as long as he doesn't have to be somewhere, he'll give you all the time of day. So I think that the players see that. I don't think those people are just putting on a face for the fans. They're probably very active with the team, and they take care of the boys. They bought them all houses to stay in instead of having to rent apartments and stuff like that. This way they're not in a complex with other people trying to bug them all the time. They're on their own land with their own houses and, secluded to where they can feel free and not bugged. I mean, that's an owner right there. He sees your needs, and you're not just talent to him. You're not just somebody that he pays a paycheck to and makes money off of. And I think that's the reason why the Havoc are so competitive every year is because it's easy to come here and play hockey. You don't got to worry about nothing else. You're taken care of. You're treated like family. They do a thing, I'm sure other teams probably do it, but they do a family weekend where the booster club gets all the family members, mom, dad, brother, sister, girlfriends. They get them, in for the weekend and have a nice time, a nice dinner with them and all that stuff. So, then they're always, when the family wants tickets, they got them good seats and stuff like that. It's just what the ownership has done has just really impressed me. We had that big retirement and they were hiring the players. Nolan Kaiser works in with the ticket office and all that stuff. When Glenn retired, he went right into the front office, and our merchandise has grown exponentially since he took over that part of it. There's other guys that have their little hands in it here and there, and they've stuck around, and it's Killer Alex. He still comes, and he's very approachable. You go up, you can talk to him, give him a high five. He doesn't shun you. It's just the environment is very welcoming from all over, and I think that's why it's so easy to say, okay, I can see the Havoc being first place. They're not just one or two guys. Where like not to pour salt in the wound, but the playoff game last year between Evansville and Peoria. Bear goes silent, Wilkie goes silent, and the other guy that
went silent, basically.
I mean the big stars. You got 3 big stars, and they went silent. And Ernst, that's it, and that was it. Where the Havoc, it's one night it can be over by an Elksdam or a Yannick, or that we can get points from the point, and so I just feel like they all respond to them. They all feed off each other because they're a close knit group. I've made the joke before that they must play a lot of 2K because they just seem to know where everybody's at on the ice, and that's just something you can't teach. It has to just be gel. So, I appreciate saying they're going to be number one. I would love to be number one just so we could finally capture that banner. But it always feels like, well, that's just a throwaway season now because of the curse. So I'm cool with being number two like last year. I'm cool being 3, 4, 5. I'm happy to make the playoffs because as we've seen this year, anything can happen. No matter what seed you're in. So they feel us. They know they play their. I Since Stewart took over, I've never felt like we were out of a game. We have had some terrible starts. We had a game last year against Knoxville where I think we were down like 4 goals in the third period and came back and won it in overtime. It's just that belief system. It keeps the crowd in on it, which keeps the players feeling like we can do this. Come on. It's our owners, you can't thank them enough for everything they've given us. It feels like Las Vegas when you walk in there and you watch a game. You're into it the moment you sit in that seat. They've kept prices really low. It's really, it feels like you're in a big league game. You feel like you're in the ECHL playing SPHL hockey. It's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, that's the big reason I have. I mean, like I said, I know I already mentioned a few, but to quickly, like I said, I took a glance at their playoff roster. I mean, like what you said, Dom and